Is the black horse of famine getting ready to ride too? Michael Snyder reports. A perfect storm of factors has created a global food crisis that just continues to intensify. While you're enjoying a warm dinner tonight, millions of parents on the other side of the globe will have nothing to give their children. The world simply is not producing enough food to feed everyone, but I'm entirely convinced that things are going to get dramatically worse by the end of this decade. Yesterday I discussed the red horse of war. I believe that we are in the early stages of World War III, and during the years ahead we will see death and destruction on an unprecedented scale. Needless to say, conflict of that magnitude would greatly disrupt global food production and global supply chains, and as a result we would experience horrifying famines all over the planet. The scenario that I just described is exactly what we see in the book of Revelation. In Revelation chapter 6, the black horse of famine immediately follows the red horse of war. Chapter 6 verse 4, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given him unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Right now we're literally teetering on the brink of such a disaster. According to the UN World Food Program, we are dealing with a hunger crisis of unprecedented proportions right now. Conflict, economic shocks, climate change, and soaring prices for food and fertilizer are all combining in a perfect storm to create a hunger crisis of unprecedented proportions. Right now, in some of the hungriest places around the world, there just is not enough food to feed the population. They are not talking about a perfect storm that is coming someday. They are talking about a perfect storm that is already here. Last year, more than 3 billion people could not afford to eat a healthy diet. Worldwide, more than 3.1 billion people could not afford a healthy diet, according to the report. That's 42% of the world's population, and a significant increase over pre-COVID levels. Why aren't we hearing more about this? Just because our families are not facing severe hunger, yet does not mean that we should not be paying attention. According to the article that was posted by the New York Times, the number of countries that are at risk of famine just continues to grow. The list of countries at risk of famine now includes Afghanistan, Syria, and Mali. Humanitarian observers also worry that North Korea may be nearing a famine. That same New York Times article pointed out that things are particularly dire in Eastern Africa. About 90 million people are facing severe hunger in Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. These countries unfortunately have their own histories of severe food shortages, but the world has never witnessed all of these countries descending towards mass starvation at the same time. I'm not the one that used the term mass starvation to describe what is happening in Eastern Africa. This is the New York Times that we're talking about. Even they are admitting that this crisis has started to spiral out of control. Here in the United States, there is still enough food to go around, but supplies of food have been getting tighter. According to the Farm Bureau, the U.S. actually lost more than 140,000 farms during one recent 5-year period. Between 2017 and 22, the number of farms in the U.S. declined by 141,733, or 7%, according to USDA's 2022 Census of Agriculture, released on February 13. Acres operated by farm operations during the same time frame declined by 20.1 million. That's a 2.2% loss, a loss equivalent to the area of about the size of Maine. And the size of the U.S. cattle herd is now the smallest that it has been in 73 years. Not many ranchers active today will remember the last time the U.S. cattle industry was this small. On January 1st, 2024, the all cattle and calves inventory was 87.15 million head. the smallest total inventory since 1951. The all cattle and calves inventory is 1.9% smaller year over year and is the fifth consecutive year of declining cattle inventories, a total decrease of 7.65 million head, or 8.1% since the most recent peak in 2019. The 2023 calf crop was 33.6 million head, down 2.5% year over year, and the smallest calf crop since 2014. Meanwhile, the bird flu continues to spread all over the country, and this has pushed up egg prices dramatically in recent months. Data from the United States Department of Agriculture shows that grade A eggs prices per dozen jumped 40% from $2.13 to $3 between November and February. Of course, just about everything has been getting a lot more expensive since Joe Biden entered the White House. Here are some more examples. Boneless chicken breast has increased in price 26% from $3.26 per pound in January 2021 to $4.11 per pound in February 2024. White bread per pound is 30% more expensive, up to 2.1 cents per pound in February versus 1.55 per pound in January 2021. And white sugar has increased cost per pound from 68 cents to 98 cents in the last 3 years, a 44% increase. I always warn my readers that the way that the global food crisis would initially manifest itself in the United States would be through much higher food prices. And now I believe we're reaching a tipping point for certain commodities. Just look at what's happening to cocoa prices. They just continue to shoot up at an exponential rate. May Ice New York cocoa today is up 381, that's 5.42%, and May Ice London cocoa is up 6.55%. The May New York and London cocoa futures contracts today both rallied sharply to new contract heights on continued concerns about tight cocoa supplies from West Africa. Lower cocoa production in the Ivory Coast, the world's largest producer, is a major bullish factor for cocoa prices. Monday's government data showed Ivory Coast farmers shipped 1.22 MMT of cocoa to ports from October 1st to March 10, down 29% from the same time last year. The Ivory Coast cocoa regulator said last Thursday it expects the Ivory Coast mid-crop, which officially starts in April and is the smallest of two annual harvests, to fall 33%. Trader Econ Agro-Industrial Projects Ivory Coast 2023-24 cocoa production, which ends in September, will fall by 21.5% year over year to an 8-year low of 1.75 MMT. I know that I have said this before, but I'll say it again. If you love chocolate, stock up now while you still can. The same thing could be said for many other food items as well. During a recent interview with Fox News, prepping expert James Nelson explained that most Americans are woefully unprepared for any sort of a major supply chain disruption. Nelson calculated that if a freezer goes out, people will only have that food for 3 days, and if the power goes out, Americans are now reduced to 5 days of food in their homes. A local suburban or urban area will also have about 2 weeks of food and has generators if the power goes out, but when people are dependent on storefronts, they will quickly be emptied out. In the event of even a temporary supply chain collapse, most homes are within 2 weeks of being entirely dependent on handouts from a government entity or non-government organization, Nelson said. Anybody who does not have a 3 to 6 month of basic staples and food within your home and the ability to grow a garden, then what's your plan? I mean, these are not weird concepts to talk about, he said. And he's right. Our world is rapidly approaching a time of unparalleled chaos, and most of the population is completely and utterly unprepared for it. If you plan to get prepared, now is the time, because it appears that the black horse of famine is getting ready to ride, and it won't be too long before it finally gets released. This is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. About the author, Michael Snyder's extremely controversial new book entitled Chaos is available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon.com. He's also written 7 other books that are available on Amazon, including End Time, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters, commissions earned. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and The Most Important News. And he always freely and happily allows others to republish those articles on the other websites. You can connect with Michael on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and share his articles on your own social media account is definitely a great help. These are just troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Please kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.